Welcome, one and all, to the Matt Murphy Show. I am not Matt Murphy. I'm Cameron Smith, and I'll be with you for the next 4 hours as we explore the delicious, delicious tastings of a government shutdown. We're going to talk about the 7th Congressional District race. We have a little bit about, actually, last week when I was here with Matt, talked about some of the DCS reforms, and as a foster parent, I'm very interested in what happens to these kids because I don't think there's anything worse than having a state as your parent. And you guys really engage that conversation, and I want this show to be about you and what you want to talk about. So the SuperTalk text line, 615-737-9986, is open. The wonderful Action Jackson, if you could be so kind as to open the phone lines so that you guys can call in. Same number. You can text or call. It's the same number, 615-737-9986. Somewhere back there and beneath the lights and glass and metal is Ken Weaver, and he's keeping you informed.
How you doing, Brother Cameron?
I'm rocking and rolling today.
Yes, sir.
It is, the lights are bright in here in the studio. I am baking slightly, but the sweat you see trickling down my face, if we get to that point, it's not because I'm nervous. It's because I'm being irradiated slowly. So
it's like you're under grow lights.
Yes. So you guys don't get to see this. You can see it online. Those of you who are following along online, you can see some of it, but you can't see that in the command center chair that I'm in, right next to me is a stack of blinking, blooping lights and servers and stuff, and it just
radiates heat.
It's just heat, like straight up right on my right thigh right now. It is nice and warm, ready for prime athletic competition. I don't even have to do anything. I can just sit here and it slowly cooks. So it is much like a Christmas ham presently. But I am so excited to be with you guys. We've got some good information. Jason's already here, folks. When Jason's on the SuperTalk text line, I know it's going to be a good day. And, you know, he's saying that the shutdown's been the best thing that's happened all year long. We will test that theory. We will challenge some assumptions and try to figure this out because J.D. Vance is blaming the Democrats. AOC is come to my office and negotiate. Otherwise, the shutdown's on you. It's a lot of nah. And we got to get to the bottom of it, folks, because I know this is going to shock you. But in the end, you're the ones that are going to get screwed by this.
Bingo.
I mean, don't think for a minute that this is really going to work out and the government will reform, will rein in spending, will save money, all the things. No, it's just you. We're going to talk about a 2019 law that requires something in relation to this shutdown that will shock your conscience. And so we'll get through all of that in this show. As I start every show, I want to tell you guys when I fill in, one, thank you for having me. I appreciate you so much. Two, I want you to know where I'm coming from. I think it's real important that when I speak to you, you know what I'm doing, who's paying me, stuff like that, so that you're not getting some kind of spun version. You got enough of that everywhere else. So I want you to know I'm on the editorial board of the Tennessean. I'm a columnist, Gannett Network columnist over there. I appreciate you guys giving me conversation topics that I can write about. Go read the stuff over there. I've got a great piece out today on the 7th Congressional race that we'll go over a little bit today. You can follow along there. My day job is at Thanks, where we help folks grow their business with gratitude. They graciously allow me to duck out a little early so I can spend some time with you guys. And I do a lot of random fun stuff. I work on, we made a movie, The Ballad of Davy Crockett, that you guys were awesome. Those of you that watched it, you can go stream it. And we've had a lot of fun with things like Wasted Bacon. Wasted Bacon is good for you, as it turns out. And it is tons of fun. I'm about to release some more stuff. But go wherever you stream music. Go listen to Wasted Bacon. Let me know what you think. It's supposed to be funny and entertaining. I realize we're dead serious and we want to be angry and shout about everything. But occasionally, you know, laughing's not a bad thing. And we need to do more of that. And once we cover the cost, all the proceeds will go to Men of Valor because it's a fantastic prison reentry ministry based here in Tennessee. And actually, the origins of Wasted Bacon trace back to a Men of Valor breakfast. As far as the Beast, you guys know I am a father of 5. And we do all the football, all the other things. Sunset Middle School's season is over. We're on to wrestling. And the Little Beast is very excited about that. We've got freshman football, JV football, all the things. And we're sort of in the midst of wrapping up some of those things. And I can tell you guys, one of the most fun things that I've done all year. My coaching tenure is over for right now for football. My youngest is in middle school, and so I am a super fan now. But I like to be on the chain crews. So Friday night in Nolensville, you may see me on the opposing sideline. In my Nolensville gear, carrying the markers, and it is so much fun to listen to the opposing team and hear how it's going during the game. Best seat in the house. Something I love to do, but to quote Ted Lasso, football is life. And, here we've got a lot going on. I've heard these volunteers are contenders. That's what Jackson tells me.
Yeah. Alabama looked pretty good on Saturday.
They did.
Hey, wait. Matt sent me a message in case this happened. We are not allowed to talk about football or any sports on the news talk show.
Oh, so he has the microphone right now, right? Oh, okay, cool.
Just a message.
I was just checking. No, I understand that. But here's what Nick Saban would say to all of this. If you're an Alabama fan, rat poison. Like none of this. It looks good. It's awesome. It's rat poison.
Gonna be a hell of a game in Bryant-Denny in a couple of weeks.
You know what? I have not been this excited about playing Vanderbilt in ever, and I hope Diego Pavia retires after the game.
I wouldn't hate it. I'm not gonna lie. I hope y'all smack up Vanderbilt.
And the reason I say that is not because it is because my man is good. Like, he's a good football player.
He is.
And he may not look like the physical stature part, but dadgum, he's a baller. And so,
What is he, 5'8"?
I don't know.
Ken's taller than...
He is not a large dude, but, I mean, he can sling it everywhere. He can run, and you gotta respect a guy that's had his journey through college football to make Vanderbilt...
relevant.
A ranked football. Are you kidding me? This is Vanderbilt, and they're there. And my hat's off to Clark Lee. I mean, it's kind of funny because Clark's a little bit older than me, and we played. He was at NBA. I was at Brentwood Academy, and so I still have rivalry in my blood. But I mean, what a great job he's done there. I mean, there's a lot of folks, and I don't know. We're landlocked, but anchor down and stuff. Not this week, as they head to Tuscaloosa. But generally speaking, I mean, wow, what a big deal. Okay, let's get into it. Shutdown. So I want to see on the Super Talk text line 615-737-9986 who thinks that the shutdown or shutdowns save us money. Like, let me know. Like, is this is how we really our fiscal conservatism shines, right? I'll just go ahead and spoil it for you. The answer is no. And here's why. It's basically shutting off the spending spigot, kind of. But there was a 2019 law that was passed. It was part of that whole thing that happened, that whenever you furlough federal employees, you have to give there is a statutory there's a law that says you have to pay them back pay. So they're not working because you've shut down the government. We do not have the funding to continue operations. John in Lawrenceburg says he's never heard of Nick. I bet you have, John. Anyway, the bottom line is we are going to pay these folks back. Does anybody know? 7381, bingo. Shutdowns are political theater. Amen. Okay. Let me break this down for you in a way that I think is helpful to me when I think through these things. So we have a normal appropriations process. Matt's talked about it. I've talked about it. You got 12 appropriation bills. You know why we have 12? Well, there's a law, decades ago that created this structure. That's not the real issue. The issue is we do it so that you don't have to shut down the entire government. It breaks down funding into 12 discrete mechanisms, right? So there are these appropriations bills. They're supposed to go through this process. They are passed in the House, passed in the Senate, signed into law. Yay, appropriation bill done, and you do 12 of them. I don't know if y'all know this, but we fund the federal government every year. We have not stopped funding the federal government for any appreciable length of time. Any leader that's telling you, well, this wasn't avoidable. It is completely avoidable. This is the height of silliness. The fact that we're here is stupid. But we've done this. The longest shutdown on record is 34 days. It was from the end of 2018 to January, I believe, 25th of 2019. It was during the first Trump term. At the end of that, we paid everybody back. We did not save any money. We did not change our spending patterns. Here's how ridiculous this is. The year over year, first year of Trump's new term, we've spent 7%, 6 to 7% more than the prior year. Okay? Now we're talking about a continuing resolution. That means we continue that. What we're doing is continuing essentially Biden era spending at higher rates than the prior year. I mean, I guess you could argue, well, it's a continuing resolution, so it's the same, so you won't see a year over year increase. But you already saw that increase. And we already, if keep tracking back with me, remember COVID where we blew money out everywhere? Well, we've never really recovered from that, and we do $2 trillion a year deficits. 1.8 trillion. Like, okay. But we never really went back to the idea that $1 trillion deficit was like a big deal. We just are continuing to blow it out, and now we're maintaining that, and that is the win for Republicans. Congratulations, folks. Congratulations. If Republicans get what they want and Democrats get out of the way, we are still going to spend more money. We are not going to save any money. We are still going to deficit spend. We are not changing really anything, and that's the big win here. We've got to take a break, but when we come back, we can talk about, well, what are the Democrats proposing and where do we end up in all of this? But right now, we'll take that break. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Superdog 99.7. Well, that's a heck of a teaser, Ken. If the senators aren't there, I wonder what they can do.
Yeah.
It's wild. I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out.
Boy, they're really working hard.
Yeah, hardly working. Exactly. Yeah. So I went ahead and tweeted out. You can go check it on the X machine at D Cameron Smith. I took the liberty of those of y'all who don't know this. There's a group in Congress called the Congressional Research Service, and basically they are the nerd task force for Congress. And so staff can ask questions of Congressional Research Service, and they do a great job of well-cited, well-thought-out research that answers a bunch of questions. Several years ago, there was a move to make these reports public because it was kind of hilarious that constituents would ask things and Congress would ask CRS, and then CRS would tell Congress, and then they might tell their constituents. Now, these reports are public. You can see them, and they're really useful. And I tweeted one out at D. Cameron Smith that tells you everything you want to know about the shutdown. It is very, very clear how this stuff goes. It links to reports on, hey, were there any cost savings? What was the expenditure? Short story, cost us billions of dollars to shut down the government and then pay everybody back and hassle with all the shutdown logistics and then the reopening logistics. The other part of this that people really don't sort of think through is we talk about non-essential employees, and I'll give a little bit of credit here. They have these things called shutdown plans that the agencies have to basically designate some employees and say, hey, this is a critical government function. You got to keep working anyway. We can't shut that down because if we shut down, people could get hurt. There's other things. Other stuff like park service type things. My favorite shutdown thing of all time, was in Washington, D.C. at one of the last shutdowns. They put up a barrier around the World War II memorial to shut it down. The World War II memorial, you can just walk up to. Like, you can walk around. It's pretty fine. There's nothing there that is dangerous, or it is just basically a monument. And they put the big plastic, like, traffic barrier type things around it to shut it down because why not? And that's the kind of ridiculousness we're talking about this. But I do think we need to talk about, well, if Republicans were asking just to continue the status quo, which is shameful and terrible, what did Democrats want? And the answer is hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. So these are premium subsidies for health insurance offered through the Affordable Care Act exchanges. Here's the problem. It's just money to people, right, to make health insurance cheaper. And the last numbers say about 22 million people enjoy these subsidies. Well, guess what? If you enjoy these subsidies, it's a good deal for you because your health insurance is way cheaper. Right now, if these expire, some of the estimates say premiums will go up 100-something%. For folks who have employer-sponsored insurance, you might get 10%, 15% year-over-year increases in what you pay, your employer pays. 115%, something like that, is a lot. So Democrats are saying we can't maintain the status quo because these subsidies are expiring. We need to make sure there's money in here that will go to these subsidies. Otherwise, no deal. We're shutting down the government. Well, Republicans have said, and I don't know that it's entirely, well, I do know. I want to be real clear, and y'all probably aren't going to like this. Republicans have been saying that the Democrats want to give health care to undocumented illegal immigrants. That's not true. The big, beautiful bill rolled back these subsidies for people here with legal status who are immigrants. So think like student visas, refugees, asylum seekers, that kind of stuff. What Democrats want is for that class of immigrants to have access to these again. I think it's a very fair point to say, no, we shouldn't do that. There's a big difference in saying these things are designed for illegal immigrants. That is not and has not been the case. It is a cohort of immigrants that these subsidies were rolled back under the big, beautiful bill. That's a policy decision, and it's quite a reasonable one. If somebody's here on a student visa, I have no idea why it's the taxpayer's job to cover their subsidized health care. I don't. That is a policy choice. I think Republicans rightly are saying, why? No, if we're going to do this at all, let's do this for U.S. citizens. And again, Democrats are pushing to spend more. And I think ultimately that's what we need to realize here is this is a challenge of where do we draw the line? Because if it's ugly and uglier, then we're going to be somewhere in the ugly spectrum. And that's what Republicans are failing to see here. And I don't think they're failing to see it. I think they just don't care. That their big win is the status quo, which is fiscally ridiculous and irresponsible. And then Democrats say, you know what? We're going to push for more. So if we end up with a little more, and that's the quote unquote compromise, then yay, we win. Well, I think that's ridiculous. We'll continue this conversation on the other side of the break, but I think this is important that we understand this is how we end up with $1 trillion in debt. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7. Welcome back. I'm Cameron Smith, filling in for Matt. The SuperTalk text line's open, 615-737-9986. You can call in as well and let me know what you think about all this shutdown business. A couple things from the text line. I try to get to you guys during the breaks and communicate where I can. Is the idea of, hey, let's use this shutdown as an opportunity to right-size government. Possible, but it gets a little tricky because you have to find ways to terminate employees, not furlough them, terminate them, and basically survive the ensuing lawsuits that say there are federal civil service protections that you've run afoul of. So the better way to do this is through legislation, is through the legislative process where we fund these agencies, and if we want to shrink them, reduce the funding. It's not that complicated. We make it sound like this is so confusing. If y'all recall, years ago, we had the sequester and these automatic cuts that basically all the politicians hated. Jason raised the question of, is it okay not to like anyone in Washington? And the answer is yes. It's perfectly acceptable. Particularly from a fiscal standpoint, this is silly to look at this and try to make any sense of it for any principled conservative. Anybody who believes that we shouldn't just spend like it's funny money. What happened with the sequester? It was basically, if you don't agree to to targeted spending reductions, we're going to do across the board cuts, and that's what everybody agrees to. Well, that lasted for a hot minute until people realized we don't agree on much, and so we're going to have across the board cuts, and we don't like that because it means things I like get cut as well as things I don't. Typically, what that means is you've got entitlement spending cuts that folks on the left hate. Now the right kind of hate some of that too. And then you had the right that was really defense spending. They wanted to make sure defense spending didn't get cut. And so they tried to do, and I shouldn't say it was entitlements, it was discretionary spending cuts. So the money that the government just decides to spend, and then there was defense. And that actually can work, right? If we don't agree, we're just going to reduce all the numbers by 5%, 10%, 15%. It's not fun because then people have to figure out how to do more with less. The other thing that y'all said on the Super Talk text line was a couple of you were government employees. And you said, I serve regardless of partisanship, and I'm proud of the work I do. I know a great number of federal employees that are excellent employees, that dollar for dollar are great investments and the kind of people that I would hire in the private sector. Some people like government service, and they like it for a couple reasons. They say, I can get in this position, I can serve my country, and I have some more protections that I wouldn't have in the private sector. So I may not make as much, but it's a little bit more of a stable gig. And I think that's a reasonable thing for folks to assume, but there's also no entitlement that that's always true. Sally asks, can Congress change the civil service protections? Yeah, it can. But again, there's a constituency. They care about their jobs, about their stability. I understand why, and they're willing to sue to protect it. You don't have to like that, but you just put yourself in their shoes. Some of these federal civil service workers, they're not partisan. They're just doing a job, a functioning government that somebody somewhere said it needs to be done. And then when you ask them, okay, do you want to keep your job? The answer is, of course they do. It's, it is their source of income. It's how they provide for their families. And so they're going to fight to defend it. And that's where I think it's easy to kind of like look at these as nameless, faceless bureaucrats, but these are real people. And I think it's important that we remember that. But nevertheless, Congress has just created agencies, funded things, grown stuff, spent. Members of Congress don't care. It's not their money, it's yours. If it was their money, and that's one of the things I've advocated for that I don't know why we don't do. We should absolutely go ahead and tie their pay to the increase in the deficit. That if the deficit is X percentage of the economy, then or GDP in a year, then you get X percent of your paycheck. And basically create financial incentives for members of Congress to not deficit spend. If we did that, it would change quickly, but we don't. I see Anonymous on line 1, so I'm going to go there. Hey, this is Cameron. Who's this? Anyone? Anonymous? No? Okay. Well, they were very anonymous very briefly. The bottom line here is that we don't have a plan. We're shutting it down. We're going to end up paying all these people back, and it will be high drama. And at the end of the day, the comment of we don't really have a functioning government makes a lot of sense. When I worked on Capitol Hill, I asked for an organizational chart of the federal government. I asked the Congressional Research Service, and they could not give me one. They said, well, these agencies and sub-agencies change from time to time. We can give you an org chart for an agency, but not the entire government. I mean, that's how big our federal government is and how ridiculous it is. That the folks in charge of informing members of Congress about what they need to do don't have a complete org chart of the federal government. So I'm happy to continue discussing this if you guys want to, but all I can tell you right now, the longest this has gone is 34 days. It is high drama. There's very little result, and you're going to pay billions of dollars more to play these stupid games. And while I do think that we should force Congress to try to do its job, my 14-year-old could do a better job. I mean, just to be honest, could go and make reasonable decisions. Don't buy all the stuff that is out there right now. Just don't buy it. So I want to turn to the next topic, which I think is maybe as important, equally as ridiculous. This is the 7th congressional race. And if you've been listening to this station during the time of this show, you will have heard some of the ads, and they are worse than anything I heard in high school. It is somebody said Trump was a bad guy and mean stuff. And then somebody out of state said another thing about this guy. But I'm more conservative than everyone. And that's literally the ads. It's so dumb. I've got a column over at the Tennessean. I would urge you to go check it out. The big problem here is not just that this is an insanely dumb race. It's that nobody actually cares, okay? And I know those are fighting words, so come and fight me, 615-737-9986. I looked at the early voting totals, and I'm telling you, this is going to be just like the 5th Congressional District that Andy Ogles won. In 2022, 5th District primary, Ogles got 21,325 votes, okay? That was 35.4% of the Republican primary turnout and less than 3% of the district's entire population, okay? I just want you to think about that. Less than 3% of the congressional district, and that does count men, women, children, decided on Ogles. Because in Tennessee, and I want to be real clear, I'm not proposing ranked choice voting or anything like that they've already said we're not going to do that. The fact that we don't have a primary runoff if no candidate gets 50+% of the vote is ridiculous. At a minimum, we should have a primary runoff. So in the Republican primary, you might have 11 in the field, but then the top 2, if nobody gets 50% or 50% plus 1, then you have a runoff from the top 2 out of that list of, call it 11. And then that's how we ultimately decide the race. I think that makes a lot more sense than having 21,000 people decide for a district of 800,000. As of September 25th, there were 8,960 people who have cast a ballot in the Republican primary. So that's part of the early voting period that began September 17th. Obviously, we have more or less another week in there that I'm sure that number's up. But there's about 785,000 Tennesseans in the 7th Congressional District. And I don't know, folks. I mean, I guess we just don't whine about D.C. when we don't really show up to pick these guys. But frankly, I don't blame you, because I've been asking, and y'all have heard me on the show with Matt saying, like, who's your lead dog here? Who do you really care about? And there have been some of y'all that came out of the woodwork and said, well, I like Gino Bulso, or I like Reeves, or, Barrett, or whoever. But what's happened here, and go look at the column. I put this out there. The candidate statements are almost interchangeable. We've got to take a break. When we come back, I will prove it to you by using quotes from their website, and it is quite funny. This is the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7. We have been talking the 7th Congressional District race. I'm going to go ahead and get to John because I want to get his thoughts, and then we'll talk a little bit more of this. We'll break at the top of the hour, and we'll come back to it. All right. John, what you got?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I read your article this morning, and it doesn't appear that this young guy, Mason Foley, is getting enough play, because I believe he is different than most of these other people. And I know it's tough with 11 candidates.
Sure.
You have to pick and choose. But, he looks different. He acts different. I'm just curious, why no hype about him?
So I think the reason why is when you see some of the polling, and, some of this you can trust, some of this you can't. You've got the four that have sort of the higher name ID, which are Jody Barrett, Gino Bulso, Lee Reeves, and I guess Van Epps is the other one. And then there's sort of other candidates sort of down the line. And unfortunately, for some of the other candidates, the real, barrier, I'll just say it, is money. You have to be able to fundraise and get your name out there when you have low name ID. And I've heard the name, but I couldn't pick Mason Foley out of a lineup. And I think that with the election already in early voting, if you don't do the fundraising legwork early to have enough to get your name out there, it's real hard to break through, in a tight election window. That make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, because of the low turnout, I really think there's potential surprise coming, just based off what I've seen out of him.
Yeah, but, I actually agree with you on that. So, John, thank you for the call. I think based on the numbers here and the split field, it is entirely possible that somebody like a Mason Foley, if they can get enough sort of groundswell right there at Election Day, it could change this thing. Again, Andy Ogles won the primary in 2022 in a similarly structured race with less than 22,000 votes. Like no votes. And that to me is where we're going to end up here, is it's just going to be, how does it split? And somebody with a plurality of the votes and is going to walk away with this. I would be shocked. I mean, shocked if somebody had 51%. I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it's going to be spread out, and candidates need to go. This is a good lesson for all the candidates. You need to go, if you want to run for Congress, and you need to get out as early as you can. If you decide you want to run, and you need to kind of build those relationships in the district. And I understand Mark Green just sort of pulled the ripcord and started a firm with a lobbyist, and let down a lot of people. And people were upset about that. But we're at a juncture where people need to know who you are. They need to be able to identify a face with name to pull for you. Some people will walk in and vote alphabetically, but if they're going to do that, they're probably not going to show up at all. And so if you want to challenge for one of these congressional seats, look, we don't have that many folks that I would consider political juggernauts right now in Tennessee. I think Marsha Blackburn's probably is about as close as it comes. Haggerty probably too. if Blackburn runs for governor, I think she's got the inside track to be governor. I think Haggerty can be a senator for as long as he wants. But otherwise, I mean, a lot of these folks are beatable. I mean, it's not popular to say it publicly because most people in, the pundit class want to curry favor. But look how much cash Andy Ogles has on hand. If somebody wanted to primary him and could raise money, he's beatable. Right now, the field's wide open because nobody has a real fundraising advantage in the 7th Congressional District. I want to talk about this race, talk about the lack of differentiation in some of those ridiculous ads. We will do that when we come back on the other side of the break. This is the Matt Murphy Show, and I'm Cameron Smith.